MMA Fancast. My name is Luke, and I have a special guest to me, somebody I've known for about 6 or 7 years now from the fight world, Vince Mosca. Vince, welcome.
What's up, Luke? How you been, man?
It's been great. You know, if we go back in time, years ago, I think it was 2015 or 16, I was running Pursuit MMA, and you fought one of my great fighters, Jordan Grenion Smith, in a really action-packed, I don't think it was Muay Thai. I think it was Glory.
K1 rules, yeah.
K1. It was K1. It was K1 style rules. It was a great fight.
Awesome.
So we've stayed in touch ever since. And I think you've flirted around with MMA, but you've really focused on the Muay Thai world. And I know I'm catching you in the very beginning of 2022 after a pretty disappointing 2021 for you. I know you had you had a world title fight in Mexico fall through and a bunch of other ones. So why don't we just start fresh? and because I know it's been a long time coming. That's why I'm so excited to have you on the show. For people watching, we usually cover MMA, but I do try to cover BJJ as well as Muay Thai, some of the other aspects of MMA. And obviously it's an honor to have somebody like you that I've known for so long. You are very connected to Ground Control MMA. And let's start there because we actually got to catch up again at 247 Fighting Championships fight in Monroeville Convention Center last summer, which was great. What is your role in that gym at Ground Control MMA?
Okay, so I train at Ground Control. It's a Henzo Gracie affiliate in Baltimore, Maryland. I'm the head striking coach of the Baltimore location. So all the Muay Thai classes, all the kickboxing classes, I run those. I corner all the fighters and such. I help out with the MMA program. And that's pretty much been my home for training as well for the past 4 years. So,
Well, that's a big deal right there. You know, the fact that is this your full-time gig, or is this something you do at nights and weekends?
As of the past year, it's been my full-time gig. Like I was bouncing around doing work I didn't want to do, whether it was like security, bartending, whatever. As of the past year, the gym has picked up enough to where I can get away with paying my bills and have enough money just to coach full-time, which has been a blessing. So I've been really lucky.
Oh, that is incredible. That's one of the things, and you're still, which is something we'll discuss, you're still an amateur. I say technically an amateur because I know you've flirted around with going pro, 5-6 times now, maybe more.
Yeah.
Way more than that, I guess. Way more. I just go off what you've said on Facebook. I'm sure it's more behind the scenes. But let's start on the coaching part. What led you to transition? If I'm right, when I met you, you were at a different gym, a different situation. But if I'm right, when I met you, you were not coaching. You were very much still just developing as a fighter. What led you into coaching, and what's kind of been sort of the biggest good surprise of being a coach?
So with coaching, usually when I was fighting, I would run classes throughout the week, hold pads for the fighters, stuff like that. Just because I had like enough fights to where I could do that actively. But around 2017, I had a bunch of injuries kind of rack up out of nowhere, a bunch of life problems hit me. It kind of made me think the fight career was over, or at least going to be done for a while. In that time, I started coaching more classes. I ended up at Ground Control. The amateurs started doing very well. We started growing our own little fight team. So I assumed maybe I'm not terrible at it. So we kept going with that. It was something I always wanted to end up doing at some point in my life, but I wanted it to be after the fight career. I didn't want to do it when I was 23, 24 years old, but it's kind of just where it led me. Through that time, I just kind of ended up getting back into fighting. But the best thing about coaching to me was I became such a better fighter from coaching. And sounds kind of weird, but like, obviously I wasn't training as much. I wasn't in the shape I used to be in. I wasn't as aggressive as I used to be. But when you have to analyze everything you do, everything you tell somebody, it makes you smarter. It makes you kind of understand things a little more. Because when I was young, like back when I fought Jordan, I was probably a lot meaner, but I really, I was still pretty simple. Like I was just like run forward, punch. I didn't really understand the game as much. Now I understand the game. I have amateurs and pros that look to me for advice and look to me for coaching. So I need to educate myself and put the actual time in, which in turn has made me a much better fighter. So that's been the best part of coaching for sure.
I think that maturity, not just in your age, but also in the way you coach others. I know that one of the biggest things coaches either sink and swim during, it's either makes them a great coach or they just are terrible coaches is the ability to train fighters to their strengths. Like you're looking, I remember, I actually know that fight, you versus Jordan, very well, because back then as a coach, I would break down once the fight was over, I'd watch tape and break down the number of punches thrown, missed, slipped, landed, kicks, all that. Like back then you were like a pure boxer with a couple kicks. I think you threw or landed 57 punches in 2 minutes or something. It was nuts. It was nuts. It was nuts. But I remember having breaking that down. At the time, I was trying to get Jordan to use his range. He's this long, tall guy that would allow people like you to fight him really short. And I didn't want that, but it really, as a coach,
I didn't expect him to be that tall either. Like when I got in the ring, so tall.
Yeah.
Jesus God. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, he's grown into his body now. I think he's a comfortable like 185, 195 or now. But back then,
looks massive.
You guys were in the 70s. But like as a coach, what has been, like you mentioned, being more cerebral, looking at a ton of film. Have you trained fighters to have different styles than yourself? And this is a challenge as a coach, because when I was an athlete in track, I saw a lot of coaches that were great at coaching athletes that were just like them, but not good at coaching athletes that had a different style. So what was it like the first time you coached anybody in Muay Thai or kickboxing that needed to fight a different style than yours to be successful?
I think it's a good point, because a lot of coaches, in my opinion, they kind of coach their one style very well, and they don't really know how to mesh. And if you don't fit that one style, you really don't thrive in that. Like I'll never pretend like I went to Thailand and trained for 10 years or anything like that, because I didn't. That's not my style. I'm not a traditional Thai boxing guy. I'm not a traditional martial artist type guy, but I've been around for a very long time through other gyms and with other fighters and stuff like that. And I've seen pretty much every look there is at this point. There's definitely a lot of different kinds of guys in ground control. We have our shorter, stockier, more heavy punches. We have our better kick heavy guys, or more movement based guys. You need to kind of understand the game from all aspects. And, I'm still learning, because again, I'm 28 years old, I'm still learning, but I definitely 100%, I try to strengthen the strengths of the good fighters that have, whatever they have. But you definitely need to also know how to shore up their weaknesses a little bit. Even if they're never going to be good at certain things, you need to kind of at least make them comfortable, at least defensively, with it. And I've had to learn that as a coach as well. I've had to travel and kind of pick other people's brains with things I maybe didn't get at certain points, but I'm 100% open-minded as a coach. And I'm definitely feel like striking should be universal. You should be able to teach a style of striking that works in boxing, MMA, kickboxing, Muay Thai, not just one, in my opinion.
Well, that's something I think that if you get deep into the Muay Thai community, that's a bit of a controversial topic, but
everything.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you. One of the things that I really liked doing in the Philly area is a method of striking that works, right? Does it work? And if a pure boxer, and this, isn't allowed really because they have to kick, but if a pure boxer can go into a kickboxing fight or a Muay Thai fight and win, then it doesn't matter if he didn't kick, it's one of those things, right? And at the time, and this is years ago, he has since joined back the special forces and saved a lot of lives in Afghanistan. So it's a good thing. But I had a fighter at the time who was a special force fighter. And he was at the time out of the military. He's since joined back up, but he's out of the military. And he was a 13-0 Army boxer, undefeated Army boxing, really, really great fundamental, sort of like that Olympic style fundamental boxing. And I tried to get him into USKA, he used to fight for USKA.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where he ended up not taking the fight because he went back in the military, which was a better choice for him. But it's one of those things where I told him, don't throw a kick. Just go out there, beat the guy up. He was a little worried about taking kicks. We taught him some defensive kick movements, block and punch, a lot of body punches, because people don't expect that. If you block a kick and punch the body, they don't expect that, all that. But I really do think, not to offend Muay Thai people, Muay Thai is incredible. Use what works. We've seen it really work in MMA because you can drive knees to the face. And that's a skill in Muay Thai. But getting to your fight in Texas, I believe it's in late January. Let's talk about that. What's the rule set? Because in your world, rule sets change fight to fight. Literally, sometimes day of, rule sets can change. So talk to me about that.
So I'm 2 weeks out now. The fight will be
Okay.
January 15th.
Okay.
It'll be full rules Muay Thai, elbows, no gear, all the good stuff. It'll be pretty traditional Muay Thai scoring from what I understand.
Okay.
So
That makes a
the
difference.
clinch. It does, yeah. They're going to favor the clinch, the above the waist kicks, the elbows, damage, which works for me. But yeah, but full rule Muay Thai, which would be fun. You know, I've had a few, like the Mexico fight was supposed to be full rule Muay Thai. One Lion fight, it was supposed to be full rule Muay Thai. So I've kind of been getting ready for this for more than a year now, and it's went back and forth a few times, but it's not a big difference. I've been training for it anyway. And like you said, you know, the Muay Thai stuff, I didn't do it as much coming up, like the full rule, but this is what I've wanted to do during the whole layoff. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah, it is really exciting. And, you know, you mentioned elbows without elbow pads. I know that's a huge deal. That is something in the MMA world that only happens at the pro level. Like I was doing interviews, you know, in Pennsylvania, there's 3 levels of MMA, and even at advanced amateur where you can do ground and pound, still not allowed elbows. So, I mean, you're competing at a pro style as far as elbows go, because it's really hard to protect elbows. It just is. Even elbow pads.
I believe there will be elbow pads. I believe that.
Physical elbow pad. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, I think that's probably what'll be happening, but still, I mean, they're paper thin. I mean,
you know, one of the things that I've always talked about with elbow pads is what the elbow pad stops is the shearing of skin, but it's really the force that makes a difference in elbows. People punch a bag with a fist and then throw an elbow into it, and you'll feel an insane difference. And so it really is quite exciting that you're going to be fighting that way. Are these shin pad lists? Given your still shin pads?
No shin pads.
No shin pads. Okay.
No, nothing.
Gotcha.
Besides maybe elbow pads.
Maybe elbow pads. Right. Well, and you're such a great fighter. I think one of the things that's exciting, and I don't know how many people have had the experience of being, but I remember we were down in Delaware. You probably might have fought on that card, but it was an MMA card that also had Muay Thai and K1 and Glory and anything else that you could throw into a cage. But the crazy part was you would show up as a coach and as a fighter, and then the ref would be like, "So what do you guys want to do?" And you'd be like, well, wait a second. I thought we agreed to. And it would change 10 minutes before the fight. You know, we were going to do MMA. No. We only want to do K1. Well, I guess you're doing K1. What? Stuff like that would happen all the time. Well, you never know. But for you, though, getting back into the fight game after your injuries, what was the most rewarding part about training for a fight as opposed to the experience of being a coach? They're both rewarding, but what for you has been exciting about being back in your own camps for all this last year and a half?
Love coaching. You know, I definitely see that as my future until I'm done. That's definitely what I want to do. I love watching guys progress. I love watching guys, you know, whether they're just normal guys that just make a little milestone in their training, or there's somebody that competes and realizes their dream, whatever. I love the coaching. I'm always going to do that no matter what. With fighting, I was kind of conflicted about it for a couple of years. I was kind of like, I'm not really feeling this anymore. When I got back into fighting, I would say it was probably about a year and a half ago where I really wanted to fight again, to where I would dick around, I would spar, and, you know, I was still all right, but like wasn't in the shape I needed to be and wasn't training consistently. But when I started sparring with Tucker Lutz, so Tucker was getting ready for the contender series, the UFC contender series. He asked me he's like, "Hey, I'm fighting a heavy puncher. You mind dusting off the gloves? Come help me out." And just being in that room, in that cage with Tucker, all the eyes on me, and it kind of sparked that like nerve again to where I kind of wanted to do it again. So over time, I really started hitting it hard again, started looking for fights that made sense. Honestly, the last couple of months has been the rewarding part of it, because I've learned a lot in this past year. I've been working with a new coach named Patrick Rivera. He's a WK World K1 champion. He's fought on Lion Fight. He's fought on Glory. He's fought professional boxing, MMA. He's taught me a ton in the past year. It's almost like you never stop learning, but it's nice to kind of just be a student again, and I'm learning things. And on top of that, I've lost probably 15 pounds the last couple of months, and I feel sharp again. People are noticing that, because for a while, I mean, I would train at the end of the night after I coached all night. I would train an hour, but it was always like uninspired, or I'd spar with somebody and I only had like 2-3 rounds in me. For the last year, I've been training very hard, and I've noticed the differences in the sharpness, and I kind of feel like myself again, which is good. So I guess the most rewarding part of getting back into fighting is just feeling like a fighter again, and learning on top of that. So, you know, the last year has been very big for me, for sure.
Well, thanks for sharing that. I do think that your experience has had the fighting mindset, the coaching mindset, now back to the fighting mindset, and a mixture of both, which is very exciting. You mentioned Tucker Lutz. Tucker Lutz is off to a good UFC career, really from the Contender Series. And he's probably the most known, I would say he's the most known fighter out of your gym. I would assume that's fairly obvious to say. But it was also exciting to see Tucker Lutz as a coach. He came to corner fighters with you at 247. So it's also interesting. Yeah, because I saw him in the corner. I don't know if that was the night you were there. It was at Johnstown. It was the Johnstown.
No, so he was there the next one. He was there when Skylar Pseudo fought.
That's what it was. It was right. Which
Skylar's
was an incredible fight.
That was great too. Yeah.
Yeah, that was at the Johnstown. That was the 247 Johnstown card. You weren't there, but that's right. It was the Skylar Shuto who put on a fight of a year against Ethan, Ethan Wolverine Goss, and it was really exciting. But it's also cool to see a UFC level caliber guy still in the coaching world, because I think that's what really makes fighters sort of that next level, is being able to coach the next generation. What, and maybe this is too deep of a question, but what do you want to see out of yourself? Because I know you've had those ups and downs emotionally, as far as, are you still a fighter? Are you not? Are you retired? You had 5 or 6 fights that they said were going to happen that didn't happen. I'm excited you're fighting in the United States. It would have been great to say, international fight in Mexico, but the reality is, with COVID and all those things, obviously Texas is a much surer bet, I'd say. So kind of, what are you trying to see from yourself, particularly if you're still considering that pro card? Like, what are you kind of waiting to see from yourself come January 15th?
Well, I mean, the pro thing, I mean, that was back in 2014, back in 2018. I've had pro fights lined up, and MMA at the time. Recently had a pro boxing fight lined up. The fight on Lion fight was supposed to be professional. It just literally, I just had no luck apparently. So this was offered to me. This kid is from there. He's a good fighter from there. He's going to be there. He's going to show up, and it's going to be a good test. The more I train with these guys, the more that I get confidence, and I'm still the nail in the room sometimes as well. I'm not like beating everybody up, but I told my coach, Pat Rivera, I'm going to give this one hard year and see where this goes. And if I'm not in a position next year to where I could be somewhere, whether it's Lion fight or whether I could be on the Contender Series, something like that, maybe I'll probably just focus on coaching. I'm never going to neglect my coaching at all. Like, example, there's a big MMA card in Baltimore in March. And, I could easily get on that. I could sell the place out, and I'm sure I could make a run at that. But I have 4 guys that are fighting on that card. So, and I'm a little more interested in kickboxing, if I'm being totally honest. Yeah. But I would like to give this a hard year. See what kind of tough fights I can get. I know there's a lot of big things, like Muay Thai is going to be in the Olympics, I believe, in 2028. Yeah. There's a lot more eyes on it now. Like, there's a lot of guys with a lot of hype behind them, and I want to fight those guys, and I want to see where I stack up. And if I stack up where I think I do, and where other people think I do, because I think there was a 5-year layoff. I don't think people, maybe they've forgotten, but like, I am good, and I've only gotten better. I would like to fight the best guys in the next year. And if I fail miserably, then I gave it a hard year, but I would like to see where this is at in a year and hopefully end up where I think I belong,
A very thoughtful answer. That's a more mature, balanced answer than maybe a 22-year-old would have said,
Yeah.
but it is good, right? Because you can't, this is a big part. I'm a professional mental health counselor, and one of the things that comes out a lot in mental health and also sports counseling, sports psychology, is control what you can control, right? That's it. And one of the things that's so hard is you actually can't control what's going to happen unless you're in it and fighting. And so you give it a hard year. Sometimes that means everything comes up roses and it's great and you're off to the next thing. Sometimes things continue to have problems, and you say you control what you could control. You gave it your best, and then you of course can decide what's next at that point. And so it's simple advice, but it's hard to work it out, particularly emotionally, when you can get caught up in what could have been and it's not. You always have to be in what's the now. And as somebody who's been sort of in your orbit now for 7-8 years, it's been great to see some of the stuff go your way. And there's obviously been some challenging Facebook posts I've seen over the years, but it's good. I think what's great is you found a passion that can be your lifelong. A coach can coach 30, 40 years and you can't fight that long. You know, even the probably the best old fighter in Randy Couture is still retired. Like at some point, even a guy that's good at fighting late is still going to retire. So I think you found a great passion. But as far as your fighting goes, I wish you the best skills come January 15th, and it'll be great to have you on afterwards. Hopefully afterwards you can jump back on, let us know what, you know, how you felt in there and what you want to do next. But thanks for taking time out, and best wishes to you and all the guys and girls, all the fighters at Ground Control with their fights coming up. You take care, Vince.
Thank you so much, Luke. I appreciate
You got it, brother. Take it easy. All right, bye-bye.